Remember when I told you how my family loves to play practical jokes on each other? Well, my mother told me this story about when she was little. She's the second of third, and her sister's the baby. They decided one day when they went to the store and saw a tarantula that they would buy it. It looked so real. It had a pin attached to the belly and was ready to hang up anywhere. Well, they agreed to buy it and brought it home. They had a plan. Early the next morning, before their father, my grandfather, was ready to get up for work, they would pretend to be frightened by the spider. So, they woke up earlier than normal the next morning, snuck the tarantula into the kitchen, and went to the kitchen curtains and hooked the spider right to the curtain. They bent its little furry legs to make it look like it was really hanging off the curtain. And when it looked real good and real, they ran into the bedroom and woke up Grandpa in a hurry, and he sat bolt upright in bed and said, "What happened? What happened? What happened?" And my mother and her sister said, "Oh, Daddy, there's a big spider in the kitchen. Oh, we're afraid. Oh, we're afraid." And he said, "I'll take care of this." And he got up out of bed. He always slept with his boxer shorts. So he got up out of bed in his shorts and walked into the kitchen and said, "Oh, my goodness. I haven't seen something like this in 25 years. We had lots of big spiders on the farm, but this in the city. I'll take care of it. I'm going to kill this spider. You children stand aside. If that spider bites you, you'll die." My mother and her sister went, uh-huh, and stood aside. Grandpa rolled up a newspaper, put his hand behind the curtain, took some slow, deep breaths, and whacked it. Well, the pin that was attached to the belly went into the palm of my grandfather's hand. He thought the spider had bitten him, and he was getting the blood out of what he thought was a bite. Meanwhile, he thinks he needs to go to the hospital. My mother and her sister didn't realize something like this could happen, and the spider hadn't fallen off the curtain or walked away. Grandpa became suspicious. The two little girls started getting real worried looks on their faces. He looked behind the curtain, and sure enough, it was a fake spider. Well, he was not happy with his children, and they ran off to school. Mama told me that story, and I laughed for days, and I remembered it forever. Remember how Mom and I would always go to the pet store, the one where that parrot was? We went to the same store all the time. Well, one day we went in again, and we played with the puppies, and we played with the kittens. We didn't bother with the birds, 'cause she was afraid now. But I noticed a new addition. There was a little sign that said reptile room. I thought, "Hey, Mama, look, something different." She says, "What does reptile mean?" So, "I don't know, hon. Let's go check it out." So I got her to go into this little room, and there were snakes and turtles and lizards and creepy crawly things everywhere, and she was just horrified. We're not crazy about snakes and spiders and things, and sure enough, the worst thing of all was sitting on a glass aquarium. On top of this aquarium were 4 little round cages of chicken wire. And inside each of these cages was one tarantula. And my mother said, "Oh my God, a tarantula!" I said, "Oh yeah. Look how big it is." "Oh yeah. It's furry." "Oh yeah. You know, if they bite you, you die." "Absolutely, Mama." "Well, then it can't possibly be alive. It must be dead. Because if it was real and it bit me and I died, I would sue the store. So it can't possibly be alive." "Oh, I don't know, Mama." And I batted my big brown eyes. Mama said, "I'll do a test. Let me see if it's breathing. And if it's breathing, it's alive. I said, oh, yeah, good idea, Mama. You look. Now I happened to be standing behind her, and she decided to study the spider. She couldn't see the chest moving. And I said, Mama, but it has such a little chest. You can't see it from far away. You don't know if it's breathing. You better get closer. And she agreed and got closer. And she says, now wait a minute. You're going to whack the back of my head. Yeah, I know you will. You're going to whack my head. I'm going to go into the cage. It's going to bite my nose. I'm going to die. I have a heart problem. And I said, look, Mama, look. My hands are behind my back. She says, you're going to stay there? I said, absolutely. I won't touch you. Go ahead. And she agreed. Now, my mother has a tendency to get very fascinated with little things. And she looked for a while and said, I can't see the chest rising and lowering. And I said, Mama, it's little. Get closer. I said, Mama, it's in a cage. It can't come out. Don't touch it. But it can't bite you through the cage. And she said, you're right. Good point. Now don't hit me. I said, Mama, my hands are behind my back. Now I waited, because I know my mother. When she gets fascinated with something, she forgets everything around her. And sure enough, the moment came that she was blind to everything but the spider, and keeping my hands behind my back, what I did was send a little breeze toward the spider. Well, it turns out spiders don't like breezes. And Mama, being deaf, never heard the air come by her ear, and I hit the spider with the breath, and the spider moved in her face. Did she scream? I had to hold on to one of the cages not to fall on the floor from laughing so hard. Meanwhile, she is screaming let me tell you something. You could go deaf from such screaming. She's loud. Now, all the people in the store were gone. They ran. The only thing left was a little wisp of smoke here and there. Meanwhile, I'm holding on, screaming, laughing myself into a stitch. The manager comes running into the room and he says, did something get out? Did something get out? What happened? What happened? And I was able to say to him, no, it's okay. But I was laughing too hard to tell him any more. Meanwhile, my mother is trying to catch her breath and saying to me, I have a heart problem. I could die. I didn't care. I was laughing too hard. The manager was just so furious with us. He had lost all his business for the day. And he said, the two of you, get out of the store. Don't you ever come back here again. I agreed. I didn't care. I was laughing too hard. My mother's trying to catch her breath. I was a little worried now. I had to make sure that she was okay. And I said, Mama, he said you and I can never come back to the store again. And she said, fine! And we left the store. 3 or 4 years later, I went back into the store myself. They had added a glass wall, so there was never a chance to bring Mama there again. My fault.